A couple of weeks ago, I beat Pokemon FireRed without being able to learn any new moves. The moves that the Pokemon had when it was caught were the only moves it could ever use. However, if you saw that video, you'd know that I kind of cheesed the run by manipulating the in-game trade movesets. So this time, I decided to try a no new moves challenge again, but this time in Emerald. So how will this be different? Well, here's a list of every in-game trade in this game. Yeah, that's not a lot, but not only that, none of these trades will be useful. Seedot gets 0 good moves, Plusle will be outclassed by other electric types, Horsey isn't really good at all, and the last trade is post-game only. So yeah, I'll actually need to plan out my team accordingly and not just abuse the in-game trade mechanic. Will I have good enough coverage to win? Well, we're about to find out. I make sure to pick Mudkip as my starter. Why? Well, out of the 3, it has the best coverage. And by best, I mean the least bad. Its final moveset will be Tackle, Growl, Water Gun, and Mud Slap. Yeah, it's pretty trash, but it's better than the other 2 who will only get a normal attack and a weak stab move. And plus, it's not like I'm going to be using any of the starters for the long term. Anyway, early game travel is never anything special or difficult, so we'll just skip to Roxanne. On the way though, I caught my first 2 members, a Shroomish and Petalburg Woods and an Abra on Route 116. Shroomish is only really going to be useful for a few fights and only to use status moves, but Abra will see some more usage, especially since I fixed Impossible Evolution so it can evolve into an Alakazam. Still, with Psybeam as its strongest move, it's not going to be as useful as you may think. I didn't train them up for the Roxanne fight since I knew that Mudkip would be able to easily solo her entire team. The 2 Geodudes are obviously one-shots each with Water Gun, and then for Nose Pass, I Mudslapped it once, then just used Water Gun to slowly take her out. And right after winning, Mudkip evolves. Now, before I fight Brawly, I make sure to grind up Abra to level 16 so it evolves. Kadabra learns Confusion right away, and with its high special attack, I think Brawly should be yet another sweep. And yeah, I was right. I completely destroyed Brawly with just Kadabra. Machop went down with 1 hit, then Meditite took 2 since it's part Psychic, and then I also surprisingly one-shot Makuhita. After a bit, we're on the second May fight, and I actually could have lost it. I lead with Kadabra to take Wingull out, but not before taking a Wing Attack, and then Grovyle outspeeds and uses Pursuit, but I miraculously confuse it with Confusion. I go down, then take the risk and switch to Marshtomp, and he hits himself again. That lets me take it out, and last is Slugma, but it's an easy 2-shot with Water Gun. This has me a bit worried for the Watson fight. So unfortunately, there still aren't many good Pokemon, so I'm just gonna have to beat Watson with my current 3 members. At this level though, even with Marshtomp's immunity, I seriously don't think I'm gonna have an easy time, so I decided to grind on the routes by Mauville. I'm just gonna evolve Shroomish now since it's honestly really bad now, and even if I can't use fighting moves with Breloom, it'll still at least be faster and stronger. Okay, time for Watson. I lead with Kadabra to preserve Marshtomp's health since I'm gonna need it for a stronger Pokemon. I take out Voltorb and Electrike easily, and then for Magneton I intentionally don't switch since I know that he always uses Thunder Wave first turn. And because I have synchronized, Magneton also gets paralyzed, and now I can safely outspeed and take it out with Marshtomp. Last is Manectric, and while I did win, I think this is a good example of just how bad Mudslap is. Its stab, super effective, and still barely does a quarter of its health. Yeah, we're gonna need to get some new team members fast. In the Jagged Pass, I catch my next member, Machop. It has Karate Chop, which has a higher crit chance, so it should be pretty useful, especially for Norman. Unfortunately, I won't be getting any new members for quite some time. So the Maxi fight was actually kind of scary for once. Mightyena has Intimidate, which lowers Machop's attacks, so now I'm doing less than half. With some bad accuracy and flinch luck, I almost go down, but get a lucky crit to take it out. Second is Zubat, so I switch to Marshtomp, and just look how little Water Gun is doing. Like, this move gets terrible really fast. It takes 3 hits to take out a Zubat. Anyway, last is Camerupt, and surprise, it's still not a one-shot despite being 4 times weak. Man, I'm actually scared for Flannery now. Well, the Flannery fight was interesting. Again, I'm leading with Kadabra to preserve Marshtomp's health because I'm gonna need it for her stronger members. I surprisingly don't one-shot both Numel and Slugma, but thankfully neither of them did really anything. And then I use Psybeam on Camerupt as he uses Overheat to take me out, which is great. Now I don't have to worry about a powerful Overheat for Marshtomp, and after a few Water Guns, it goes down. Last is Torkoal, and I know this thing can be a beast. I use Mudslap after forgetting that it has White Smoke, so I basically just wasted a turn, but she uses Attract. This lets me switch to Breloom and Paralyze and Seed it. I just let it go down to Overheat, then send out Marshtomp to whittle her down easily. So while Flannery ended up being easier than I expected, I know that Norman is going to be a brick wall. I need to get my team a bit stronger so that I can take his Slacking's hits and be able to whittle them down. Unfortunately, between Laveridge and Petalburg, there aren't really many trainers at all. On the way down though, Machop finally evolves. He is definitely going to be needed to win this fight. Okay, let's see how this goes. I lead with Kadabra as usual to take out Spinda, who surprisingly didn't use Teeter Dance like it always seems to use, but it instead uses a powerful Facade. Second is Vigoroth, so I get into Side Beam before going down, and I switch to Machoke and take it out with Karate Chop. Third is Linoon, and Karate Chop is surprisingly doing almost all of its health as it fails Belly Drum. After a bit, I decide to use Low Kick, and again to my shock, it does more damage, one-shotting it. Last is Slacking, so I use Low Kick to deal great damage, but he uses Counter, but it's too late now. I just use Leech Seed, paralyze him, and then spam Mud Slap with Marshtomp to win the fight. With that out of the way, a good chunk of the map opens up, which means that I can finally start collecting new, better team members. Firstly, I talk to Watson to open up new Mauville, then catch a level 26 Magnemite. Level 26 is conveniently when I learn Spark, which is one of the best electric moves I can get in this challenge. I decided on getting it since it does have pretty good defensive stats, and once it evolves, it'll have 120 special attack. The problem is that its only use will literally just to be use Spark. That's it. Next, I catch a Tropius on Route 119. Now, you probably know how underwhelming Tropius' stats are. Well, just for today, Tropius will finally get some love because it is the literal best grass type I can get in the entire game in this challenge. It gets Razor Leaf, Stomp, Growth, and Sweet Scent. Sadly, no flying moves, but I'll still take it. After clearing out the Weather Institute, we're on May 3. She leads with Slugma, but the rain is up, so one Water Gun takes it out. Second is Grovyle, so I sack Marshtomp to switch into Machoke. It goes down to 2 Karate Chops, but not before I take a huge crit Leaf Blade, because why wouldn't it crit first turn? Last is Lombre, but I'm surprisingly slower than it, so I go down, and then use my new Magneton to finish it with 2 Sparks. Okay, here's how Winona goes. I lead with Magneton to get an easy one-shot on Swablu, and then she sends out Altaria, and well, I'm kind of screwed. I know that she has Earthquake, so I switch to Tropius, but it stomps to basically nothing. I go to Marshtomp to use 2 Growls, then switch to Kadabra, who luckily confuses it on the first Side Beam. Unfortunately, it doesn't hit itself twice in a row, letting it set up 3 Dragon Dances to finish off the rest of my team. I'm surprised that Winona, out of all gym leaders, ended up making me lose. That's a first. I honestly didn't want to grind to win since that would take a while and be kinda boring, so I decided that I needed a strong attacker who can take a hit. Well, thankfully, on the route east of Fortree, there are Wild Absol. You know what Absol has? Sword Stance. You know what it also has? A 130 base attack stat. Only problem is that it has Quick Attack as its only physical move, so yay! I think I can survive a hit from Altaria though, right? So Absol ended up not being as big of a help as you may think, but oh my god, was this battle crazy. I set up 3 Swords Dances on Swablu as it just uses Mirror Move for some reason, then I take it out. Second is Tropius, but surprisingly Quick Attack does just about half. Thankfully, it only sets up the sun. Third is Pelipper, but I know it uses Protect a lot, so I use Razor Wind to nullify it and one-shot it. Fourth is Skarmory though, and this thing is tanky. As you can see, Quick Attack does just about 1/5 of its health while it's doing quite a lot, and eventually I go down. I did get it to red health though, so I switched to Magneton to take it out with the Spark. Last is the dreaded Altaria, so I switched to Tropius to use a few stomps before going down, and then switched to Marshtomp to spam Growl, and end up having this weird tug of war as it spams Dragon Dance, while I spam Growl. But now I only have 3 Pokemon, all of which don't stand much of a chance. I slowly chip it down with Kadabra and Machoke as they both go down, so now it's just down to Magneton. She has about 1/5 of her HP remaining, and I miraculously survive Earthquake with 20 HP and barely get the finishing blow. Who knew that Winona would end up being down to the wire? So I'm gonna kind of gloss over this next section of the game since it's pretty boring and never is really a challenge. However, I do catch my final 3 team members on the way to Moss Deep: Heracross, Sharpedo, and Spheal. Heracross is going to be replacing Machoke since while, yes, Machamp is a strong Pokemon, its Karate Chops are going to be doing less damage on average than Heracross's Brick Breaks. Strangely, Sharpedo can't learn any water attacks by level up, but it does get access to Crunch, which should be great for the next gym, as well as for Phoebe. And lastly, Spheal, while again won't have a water move for some reason, will be better than Snorunt since Walrein is stronger than Glalie and it has thick fat, giving it a resistance to fire. Okay, Tay and Liza time. I lead with Sharpedo and Absol obviously, and decide to target Claydol since I know it has Earthquake, which will shred through Sharpedo's paper-thin defenses. I take it out and they send out Solrock, which could be bad. Unfortunately, Xatu confuses Absol and he hits himself, so Solrock gets to use Solar Beam on Sharpedo. I switch to Magneton to land some sparks on Xatu while Absol continues to bite down on Solrock. I take them both out with ease, so now it's just Lunatone, and it really can't do anything by itself, so after a few turns, it also goes down. That went way better than I thought it would. After that, I fight Archie at the bottom of an underground cave. He was easy as he always is, and then, of course, we find out that two irresponsible grown men decided that awakening the elemental gods was a genius idea, so now the entire fate of the world is put on the shoulders of a 10-year-old. Wow, it's been a while since I said that. Well, after doing those little shopping errands, we can finally fight Hoenn, and this could have gone south fast. Love Disc is obviously a one-shot, and then for Whiscash, I switched to Tropius to use a Razor Leaf that surprisingly doesn't one-shot it. That's kind of a problem since Wallace has one. While he heals, I use one growth to ensure the one hit. Unfortunately, I don't one-shot Celio even with the boost, and he has Aurora Beam. I just sent out Heracross though since I know that he has a Crawdaunt. However, he sends out Kingdra first, and this thing can be a pain. He sets up two double teams as I try to chip him down, but he just heals back up with the rest. So I send out Magneton to hopefully 3-shot it, and I actually can, but he wakes up and it looks like he can 2-hit me at my current HP. But then his second Water Pulse is a lower range, leaving me with just 2 HP, letting me take it out, and then Crawdaunt. Wow, that was really lucky. Also surprising since 1 is usually a joke. Before I can make it to the Elite Four though, we have to fight Wally. I actually spent an hour training the Spheal that I caught earlier right before this fight since it was only level 29 and I knew that Altaria wouldn't be easy to beat otherwise. The battle wasn't terribly difficult, although I was doing pretty bad damage since, as you can see, I'm embarrassingly underleveled. Even the wild Pokemon after beating Wally were beating me up pretty badly. After that was the long grind. You all know that I always somehow end up super underleveled for the Elite Four. However, like I said earlier, the Hoenn Victory Road has a lot of strong wild Pokemon, and some of them were actually doing some pretty big damage to my weak team. I spent a couple of hours grinding the team up to level 50, which I think is a reasonable level. Alright, let's do this. First is Sydney, so I lead with Heracross. As annoying as Intimidate is, I actually got a crit on my first hit, so I one-shot it. Second is Shiftry, so I switched to Sharpedo to remove the lowered attack and to use Screech, which surprisingly never missed, despite him spamming Double Team. In fact, he never even hit me once, so Sharpedo took it out. Third is Cacturn, so I used one last Screech before going down. I sent out Heracross and used Horned Attack thinking that it'd still finish him, but nope. I am actually such a genius. I take it out the next turn though, and then Absol just uses Swords Dance for some reason, and then so does Crawdaunt, even though I'm using a powerful fighting type. Wow, he actually just gave up. Second is Phoebe, but this was basically a free win since none of her Pokemon can really do anything to Sharpedo besides her ace Dusclops, who has Earthquake, but it still didn't one-shot me. Third is Glacia, and it was yet another sweep. I outsped all of her members, and the only Pokemon that could take a hit was Walrein, but she just missed sheer cold. Alright, time for a real fight now. I lead with Walrein and use Aurora Beam, but he protects. I decide to use Encore, thinking that he just failed Protect over and over and let me set up Ice Ball, but I forgot that it resets every time it fails. Well, it was worth a shot. I still take it out and almost take out Salamence, but then he heals and I get a crit the next turn. Third is Altaria, so I go for Aurora Beam again to bring him to red health, but he finishes me. I switch to Sharpedo since I know that he has a Kingdra and Flygon left, so I need to Screech them. Thankfully, Kingdra comes out next, so I get in 2 Screeches, then I just use Heracross to one-shot it. Last is Flygon, and its Flamethrowers are doing surprisingly little. He takes me out eventually though, and the rest of my team is bad against him. I send out Alakazam and use Psybeam, and he gets confused and hits himself to get me the win. Okay, Wallace. Well, I tried this fight a couple of times, and the furthest I got to was his Tentacruel. Yeah, that's not good. Seeing how the battles have gone, I don't think just retrying this fight over and over will work. Magneton doesn't do enough damage to one-shot Wailord, nor is it fast enough to outspeed Gyarados. And Alakazam surprisingly just barely doesn't do half to Tentacruel. So I think what I'm gonna do is just train up Magneton and Alakazam a couple of levels. Alright, I'm back. Magneton still doesn't one-shot Wailord unfortunately, so he still gets in a water spout before going down. For Gyarados, I switched to Sharpedo since I know he can't one-shot it, then I use Scary Face so that Magneton outspeeds, and then I take it out with Spark. Third is Whiscash, so of course I just switched to Tropius, although because he used 2 Amnesias, I unfortunately don't take it out. I send out Heracross, and now he's just low enough for 1 Brick Break to finish him. Fourth is actually Tentacruel, so I use Horn Attack, then switch to Alakazam since he poisons Heracross. Psybeam finally does more than half, and now we just have Ludicolo and Milotic. Psybeam does about a third to Ludicolo, so I send out Heracross again, and Brick Break actually is able to take it out at 2/3 health. And now we just have Milotic, but I outspeed and do more than half. And that's it. I beat Pokemon Emerald without learning any new moves. This was interesting. A lot of the run felt easy despite being a lot more limited on options than I had in the FireRed challenge. If you want to see me do more of these no new moves challenges, let me know in the comments. These challenges are definitely fun to do since I have to plan out a perfect team to counter the entire Elite Four. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you all later.